as an entrepreneur is to just take that leap, right? We all talk about like taking that leap of faith into everything that you're going through, and really taking that first step into starting the business. A lot of people will talk about having an entrepreneurial spirit and talk about the business and have these great ideas, but what separates you as being an entrepreneur is actually taking initiative and taking action and going and starting the business, right? One of the main reasons for Smackin' was I wanted it to be a vessel of courage for other Blacks and Chamorros. So I myself, being half Black, half Chamorro, didn't really see a lot of representation, especially in the Chamorro space, for business ownership. We're one of 4 Chamorro eateries here in San Diego, and past San Diego, there's none in LA. There most recently one in Long Beach that just opened up a few months ago. There's 3 in Vegas, so there's abundance of opportunities, but then also I wanted to be able to showcase and provide some representation to these minority groups, but then also for other people of color and other minority groups, other underserved people in the community, that like you can do it too, right? Another one was I wanted to inspire my family. So back when I left my corporate job, I was working as a project manager and a data analyst for a Fortune 500 company over in La Jolla. We were pregnant with our firstborn, and I remember going into my VP's office and I was like, you know, I'm so burnt out. I was a full-time student at SCSU at the time. You know, my girlfriend at the time, now wife, was pregnant with our firstborn. I just got promoted from internship to a full-time permanent position because I was able to kind of bridge this gap between business and tech and save the company like almost $500,000 or whatever for this project that I spearheaded. And at the same time, my boss was like leading me through dual roles, right? So I had this project management position. I also had this data analyst position. And I was like, I'm burnt out. Like, I'm a full-time student. I got all these things. You have me work on my anniversary. You got me doing this. You got me doing that, right? Now I'm still working on my anniversaries, right? but yeah, I had to just leave it. I was like, I'm burnt out. And he was like, you're 22. How could you be burnt out, you know? And I was like, man, like, this is exactly why I need to just hop back into being an entrepreneur, because I only took the job to kind of provide that quote unquote security and safety blanket that so many people talk about within corporate. And before that, I was an entrepreneur for 4 years before that. And then, like I said, just took that job for that security. But I wanted to showcase to my daughter that was on the way, and then also to my girlfriend, and even my family. I'm first generation entrepreneur in my family here in the States. And no one else wanted to take that leap of faith. And so, yeah, and then paying homage to my late grandma, Rosa. So SMACKIN is an acronym. I'm a very acronym person. SMACKIN is an acronym that stands for Pseudo Mesa Authentic Chamorro Kitchen and Gourmet and Grill. And so my grandma is Rosa Pseudo. And so I wanted to honor her because she had a bakery back home on Guam. She also like would roast pig back on Guam and sell it to the markets and local stores. And so she was doing it, you know, she was doing it out there, and she wanted to have something out here in the States. And none of the 10 kids or cousins, I'm one of the youngest out of my family, none of my cousins and stuff like that never wanted to go and take that leap. And so, you know, I just felt led to start here, even though it wasn't like cooking food and just the food business. When you're talking about being an entrepreneur, you're cutting pennies, right? And so I knew that it wasn't necessarily the best monetary investment at the time, but it was something more significant, right? It was paving this path for future entrepreneurs within, you know, Blacks and Chamorros, like I said. It was paying homage to my grandma, and all these other things. And then also for this very reason, right? To be able to come in front of so many others, to provide that social proof, so then I can talk openly about being a business coach and have, not just be like the guru on Instagram, but to actually have some backbone and credibility to the things that I say, right? And so when I left that corporate job that I was speaking about earlier, I went straight down the elevator, went straight to Barnes and Nobles, and I bought How to Start a Personal Brand and How to Build a Personal Brand and How to Start a Podcast for Dummies. And so went into that. About 2 weeks after that, purchased some equipment, tried getting ramped up on this, podcast journey to speak about business, to speak about finances. I had been investing in day trading for about 4 years already, and so I was doing well in those other ventures already. And I wanted to speak about it, but I didn't have the outward kind of credibility. A lot of my friends and family knew, but the outside people, right, didn't know. The general public didn't know. And so, I wanted to provide some of that social proof. And so here's some of the things that I prepared for, and how I got prepared was I established SMART goals. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with the acronym SMART goals. If you're not, it's specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based or time-insured. And so what SMART goals does is you start with this really high objective goal, and you're able to break it out into all of these small measurable goals that lead up to this eventual goal. And if you're not doing this already in your business, or if you guys are just getting started out, this is crucial. Extremely crucial. I'll give you one story right now. I'm a part of the SBA Thrive Emerging Leaders program right now, and amongst 1,000 CEOs that are in this cohort across the nation, every single one of them we all have to qualify to be a part of this program, right? We all make at least $250,000 a year, been in business at least 3 years, and a couple of other things. And so every single one of them has done SMART goals for their business, on their business, at some point in their journey. And out of the business coaches, so we have, I believe, 50 business coaches, because we have at least one for every state. Every single one of them does this for their clients, sets it up for their clients, and then also they go through a 3-year strategic growth plan. And so we've all kind of came up with this formulation that you don't want to necessarily focus on the 5-year game plan that people mostly talk about, the 10-year game plan that people mostly talk about. Your business is always moving so fast. The industry, the marketplaces are always moving so fast, especially with social media nowadays, that 2 to 3 years game planning is most effective. So if you're going to be setting up SMART goals that are going to be time-based, make sure that you try to keep them within a 2 to 3 year time frame, and then break it out from there. Other ways that I prepared was through the SMART goals process. I wrote down these things: attending seminars, mainly hosted by SCORE, SBDC, and then I also met with other mentors. My late uncle was the owner of L&L Oceanside right here. He just recently passed last year, but met with him. Met with a couple of other restaurant owners that I used to be a server at some point for a short time during high school. Built out the business plan because of the SMART goals, right? I quit my job, that corporate job, when I was in November of 2018, right? Or October of 2018. By November of 2018, I tried to launch that podcast. My daughter is due December 2018. So I was on this super strict time frame of meeting these deliverables. And I even told myself a part of the SMART goals was that I would land a lease by February of 2019, or else I would go back into corporate, right? Because I needed to provide that stability for my daughter that was on the way. And so these were just all things that I was able to put a part of the SMART goal process. Sought out expertise, right? Lease agreements, seeking out access to capital, all of these types of things. What I didn't prepare for, right? So when we eventually landed the lease, started this restaurant, things were all hunky-dory, we're making really good progress. Inspection and equipment, right? Regulations and city codes, city turnaround timelines, right? When you're working with people from the city, there's just a very huge delay when it comes to building permits, health permits especially. And funny story is we weren't even supposed to land our final health inspection for our restaurant we had to reach out to a friend of a friend that had a friend that worked in a different county to come and like do our inspection for us, like kind of off market type thing, right? And then they were able to submit it for us. But it was a week before our July rent was due. And so I had $300 left in the bank account. Rent's due on the 1st. I need this inspection done, right? I blew through a $200,000 budget because of these unforeseen circumstances with the codes, which should have costed the seller $50,000, right? Because these inspections that we needed to have done, the inspector didn't catch these things because it wasn't specific to the restaurant. It was like more of a home inspection type business and person, which is another aspect that I would make note of. And so it costed us $50,000 when the existing business that we bought from should have already had these things taken care of. And so it was a $50,000 margin that we lost out on, which was everything of what I set aside for, these type of situations, right, down the road. And so, yeah, blew through that, $300 left in the bank account, rent's due on the 1st. We open up on June 28th, 2019, and then we end up making like 3 months worth of rent, over that weekend. We only opened that Friday and Saturday, and it was just so much, like line was just wrapped around the building and stuff like that. It was just so much that we had to close that Sunday because I was just like burnt out once again. Another thing that I would make note of that I didn't prepare for was training your staff, really investing into the staff training, because then you don't have the questions of like, what do I need to do? How do I need to do it? When do I need to deliver it by, right? When you have the systems of having training and SOPs, standard operating procedures, for those of you that don't know what SOPs are, when you don't have these in place, then you leave your employees kind of just straggling and wishy-washy. And so making sure that you have staff training on all of the equipment, what's the workflow, what are the operations, and even letting them in. I let my employees in even on my back end stuff. So knowing what my books look like right now, because then it then creates an incentive for them to put in more work because they're gonna get paid more if these incentives go well. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in our KPI section. What I didn't prepare for as well was wearing all of the hats. For those of you that are already in business, how many of you guys are in business right now? Everyone's operating? Okay, half? Yeah, and so I'm sure most of you that are working in the business, how many is working in the business? Working on the business? Working on it? Half? Cool. Yeah, and so as you know, when you're initially starting up, you may be wearing all of the hats, right? Wearing every single hat. You're in the business. I actually didn't get out of the business until just last year. So about 4 years into business did I finally be able to step out entirely from the restaurant. And now I'm able to focus on these other ventures, and it's like little sidebar, best thing that you can do for yourself. And I'll talk more about that. And what I prepare for now. So I do a lot more market research, obviously because of Merrick Media and the MK Lab. I'm here to provide like market research, competitive analysis, all of these things to build better brands for these clients. And so one of the biggest things is that I have to go and do the research, or my team has to go and do the research to understand brands more deeply, understand unique selling points and unique value propositions that you can bring to the marketplace, and then understanding deeply understanding your target audience. So what I mentioned before when I attended these seminars was I was being taught by the CEO at the time of Taco Bell and Baskin Robbins. And one of the things that they said, and are you guys recording this? Are we recording this? One of the major things that they said was we're targeting 35-year-olds that still live in their mom's basement, that are in their boxers, they're playing video games, they're doing things that they shouldn't be doing, I'll just put it that way. And, and that's the type of person that is going to be buying the deluxe box at 2 in the morning, right? And also adding on the enchilada and the, you know what I mean, this and that. So they know that target audience so deeply. And from that, I made sure that I understood my target audience deeper as well. However, like even more so, like I've just been working with the MK Lab. I've been working with multi-million-dollar companies, you know, 8-figure companies and up that have been recording there. And when I hear them talking about their audience, it's per product, right? So I just worked with Bolle Brands, Spy and Serengeti. If you guys are familiar with the sunglass company, they have like the cross with Spy on the side. So I've been working with them and doing some recording with them. And it was per product that they understood their target audience. Like they knew their audience, exactly what they were gonna wear that day, exactly what car they drive, you know, and they're able to market and advertise to those people. And so I have this saying is, if a picture is worth 1,000 words, then the numbers are the picture, right? This is what is allowing you to tell the story through and through. And so why the numbers matters, like I said, numbers are the picture. They allow you to understand how to budget, how to plan, make strategic decisions, understand your cash flow management, gets you access to capital if you're looking for investors and lenders. This is how you're going to be able to access that capital. Understanding your metrics and KPIs, which we'll talk about, bless you. Pricing strategies, and then also just compliance. You know, if you're not managing your books properly and you don't have a pulse on them, at some point, IRS is gonna come. IRS, you're gonna get audited either by IRS or some outside company, and they're gonna come. God willing that your company does make a ton of money and is able to also serve the community in a positive way, they're gonna come. And so I heard you guys kind of talking a little bit about it earlier, but this acronym BAIL is understanding having great relationships and investing your time, energy, and resources into developing great relationships with these people. You guys were talking a little bit about customer relationships managers with the banks that you've been working with. Moving matters, right? Movement matters. So you guys are a part of the RISE program right now, right? Too? Yeah, we just filmed them at the lab too. Yeah, I'm not gonna point out anything, but you guys were nominated for one of the awards. So by you know what? I'm gonna save the name. You'll see it at the award ceremony. But yeah, having great relationships with these people. So having great bankers allows you to have better access to capital, gets you better rates. So even if your credit is crap, maybe they might be able to work something out with their people and give you, I put here financial advice, more financial suggestion, because they're not financial advisors, so they cannot give you actual financial advice. Same thing with accountants. I was using QuickBooks Online. I still use QuickBooks Online, but I went through, so I'm going to answer this question for you. Don't spend the money on getting the one-time setup fee, $500, and then having them manage your books for you, because they're going to give you something that's general. Going back to SMART goals, you want to specify, you want to be specific and niche down to your specific business. So when I did it for the restaurant, this whole time for the past 3 years, or the first 3 years, I was getting it ran from an outsourced accounting company, and they were using QuickBooks as well. But when it came time to a CPA and a bookkeeper to eventually audit it, they were like, what is this, you know? And they were just creating journal entries that were just like $50,000 for this, $100,000 for this, and stuff like that. And we didn't really have a real pulse and understand the bigger picture, right? So when we say numbers are the pictures, because you're able to tell the story to these lenders, to IRS, right, for compliance reasons, you're able to pin back all of these and create the story and the narrative behind what your actual business is. And so definitely would recommend, if you're not able to in-house a bookkeeper and an accountant or CPA, or even a financial controller or CFO, you can look for one of those fractional CFOs, right? Or like I'm blessed to have, my bookkeeper was a former controller, and so I get to pay her a bookkeeper rate for controller advice. And so I don't know how many more clients she's looking at taking on, but yeah, you can reach out to me. I'll be happy to provide a contact for that. Insurance, right? This tempers down your risk management. You can create tailored coverage specifically for what your business needs, and not just trying to upsell you to their newest and greatest, insurance policy because they want to milk it. And then legal. So spending time, just to bring back the story of when I was in corporate, I was a project manager specifically in compliance, legal, and risk for this Fortune 500 financial firm. And so, bless you, understanding that there are a various of needs when it comes to compliance things. Being a part of this SBA program that I'm in right now, we're seeing that almost no one, like 95% of businesses would probably be in compliant in California, because of how strict HR rules are. For example, if you're a construction company, you need to have an employee handbook whenever your job workers are going off-site and they're going on-site. They need to be in I think it's 14 different documents need to be inside this employee handbook, along with your employee handbook inside the truck when they go to these on-site jobs, right? If they're not working in a physical office space, which is another thing, you need to have all of these documents displayed within a physical office space. Specifically, if you're a restaurant owner, I don't know if anyone's in a restaurant, but if you're a restaurant, it needs to be where your employees can see it, and also where potential employees can see it. So if you bring people on to a job interview, they need to be able to see that you have it as well. So just little things like that most companies completely neglect. And so having a good lawyer and having great HR and all these people, they're providing that insurance and assurance that you're going to stay compliant to all the new rules and regulations, especially having a business in San Diego. And so one thing I wanted to point back to was when you guys were analyzing like the balance sheet and profit and loss statements, income statements, right, is you have key performance indicators that when you're looking at, say, the balance sheet, or when a lender is looking at the balance sheet, they're going to be looking at your assets, liabilities, right, and equity. And they're going to be measuring it off of these key values. So I've noted it down for you. If you guys want to take note of it, take a picture of it, or we can send the slides out later. But this is coming from top-level CFOs, financial controllers that work directly and have great relationships with bankers. This is exactly the number values. You can Google them, but actually having relationships with actual people, these are the numbers that most people will look at. Most banks will look at, most lenders will look at, is having a current ratio of 2-to-1, which means that which tells the story that you're going to be able to pay your debts off at a 2-to-1 rate. So they're going to be able to lend to you a greater amount because they're going to assume less risk, right? Because they know that your business is producing enough overall assets. A quick ratio is 1-to-1, which looks at your current asset to liability ratio. And so that's going to tell the story of like, what's the highest liquidity value right now in your business. So looking at your cash, looking at your accounts receivable, and it's going to be able to tell the story of like, okay, I'm going to be able to pay this back very soon because it's at a 1-to-1, or you want to have it at a 1-to-1 at a minimum. These are all minimum amounts. Debt to equity, you want to have it at less than 2.5 to 1, meaning that your amount of debt that you have in business, you might have a higher amount right now because you may be taking out may have taken out loans or have a line of credit or whatever that you may have used to start up your business. But the sooner that you can get your debt to equity down, the more access to capital that you're going to be able to have. And then another KPI metric, from what we're seeing across these kind of 7-figure, 8-figure businesses, is that you want to have at least a 10% year-to-year growth. And so now we're going to talk about using numbers to make better decisions. Like we already talked about earlier, when you're looking at those KPIs, what you're actually telling the story about is that you're able to leverage your access to capital with these banks, right, with these lenders. And if you need access to lenders, I have people within the SBA. I also have outside lenders and investors if you guys are looking for access to capital, which is one of the advantages that you would get to work or get to have with working with me as a business coach. But for you guys as a mentor, I will also provide that information to you for free as well. You're able to make better offers to your customers. So me being in both product and service-based businesses now, I'm able to analyze, not only what the pricing structure looks like within my restaurant and how to price things effectively for my restaurant, but I'm actually able to create a margin so that I can build that offer into the customer, right? So their customers are already paying the price, but you're able to create that small extra margin where you're actually able to create an ad or to market it to them and boost your post to Instagram. And I want to encourage you guys to make that extra margin, so that you can create a better offer for your customer. Because if you're just leaving it up to Google and like SEO to try to drive your market demand, those are great. It's great organic opportunities. But where I've seen a lot of immediate growth is by spending the money on ads, spending a little bit on ads, spending that little bit more on marketing. A lot of people get feared away, especially at the beginning of business, like I did, where I didn't really understand marketing too much. And I'll talk about that a little bit more of, some of the pain points that I had to deal with was getting over the fear of spending to get more, right? You want to spend a lot more to get a lot more, right? And so definitely want to encourage you guys to do that. You're also able to create an incentive program for your employees. So, especially in today's job market, people are getting laid off left and right. People are quitting their jobs left and right. I lost a ton of cases during the pandemic, even though they were quitting their job, right? In the state of California, they're not supposed to receive unemployment, but that's just the type of job market that we're in where, you need to create those incentives to keep those employees happy. And that's one of the key pillars that I've always had with Smackin' is that you're number one. The employee is always number one, and then customers are number two, right? Because they're the ones that are gonna drive your operations the entire time. And if you're trying to create a system that's going to make it so that you don't have to be working in the business anymore, then you need to create some kind of incentive for these employees to stay with you and stick by you. So for example, I have an employee that's been there every single day, rain or shine, since the third day of opening. Once I finally realized that, I wasn't gonna be having family come in to support me this entire time. The first 2 days of opening, I think had 14 people with me, but that was all friends and family that were just coming to support because we didn't know how busy it actually was gonna be. And then eventually I had to invest into some training, invest into some employees, and make it a legitimate business and not just like a backyard barbecue, with friends and family, which is the way that I treated it the first couple of days. Cause I was like, man, I was so stressed out seeing all these people wrapped around the building and stuff. I'm like, man, all right guys, this is just a backyard barbecue. Just treat it as a backyard barbecue. I'm gonna tell you how many chickens to put on each rice plate. Just come on, just keep dumping it out. And then, eventually, we had to create the systems to be, more efficient and effective and scalable, right, with our operations. Another ones is you're able to create better systems, workflows, and automations, like I said. So within just the restaurant, we were able to, make enough where we're able to invest into kind of more efficient ways to be operating. So, for example, putting in a small freezer next to the fryer so that way our employee doesn't have to take 10 extra steps, right? They're able to just do a quick turn, put it in, right? So if I didn't know the numbers, right? If I didn't have a pulse on our profit margin, our bottom line of what we were doing the year before, right? We net about 13%, which is about 5-6% above restaurant average. Restaurant average is about 8%, 7 to 9%. And so we net about 13%. In-N-Out nets about 20%. But if we didn't know this, then we're not going to be able to create all of these different systems and enhance the workflow, right, for these people so that they're not getting burnt out, right? If my main concern back then was being burnt out when I was at work, then why would I want to create a workplace where they're going to get burnt out as well, right? And then another one is just driving business innovation and longevity and continuity. So for those of you that don't know, there's about 5 stages to business. And the way that you're going to be able to create an offer to someone, right? So first step is lead generation. The next one is having a core product offer, right? Something for them to buy into. Then you send them through another streamline, which is having something more premium, right? So for us, we have our regular, bowl size all the way up to a feed the familia. And so that ranges from, $5, you can come in and spend $5 or you can spend $80, right, on one ticket and everything in between. So having something that's going to create leads for yourself, create leads for your business, then a core product offer, a premium product offer, and then something that's going to drive continuity within your business. Some of the brick walls, like I kind of alluded to earlier, was some of the startup expenses. So like I said, when we took over this lease, we could have put that money in escrow. We could have put that onto the seller of the property. So having all of the fire sprinkler systems up to code, they had a residential water heater inside in the corner next to greasy fry equipment and stuff, which is completely illegal. No smoke alarms, no exit signs, all these things, right? And so knowing these initial startup expenses, would have prevented that headache. I eventually ran into the same situation with the MK Lab, where we had to build out the music studio, and I didn't know. I was negligent because there was nowhere in the lease that said that I needed to pay a down payment for if we were to leave, that we would have to tear down the space that we just created, right? So we had to pay like a $3,000 security deposit, right, for something that if we had wrote that into our contract prior to leasing out, that I probably could have avoided, right? And so just having a good understanding, right, by doing market research, like I said, meeting with mentors, coaches that are kind of similar in your space, and then you're able to kind of get a feel about what they've experienced. Maybe they might not remember the micro details of these type of situations, but you're also going to be able to avoid those larger headaches, hopefully, right? So like for me with restaurant, I'm going to be like, okay, show me your fire sprinkler system, show me all of these electrical things, right? Because I don't want it to cost you $25,000, $30,000 of unforeseen expenses when you wanted to save that as startup working capital to get going. Another one was limited staff. Like I said, we didn't understand or know that we were going to have, a line wrapped around the building. And so knowing to staff, that many people or having employees in that manner, when I thought, it's just going to be me, my uncle, my cousin, we're going to be good, my wife. And we would be chilling. My numbers and projections that I made in the business plan, we shot through it. we 4x'd it in the first day, or in the first over the first 3 months, right, of business. And then eventually, you guys know the pandemic hit in 2020. And so it created this shift for us, which was another brick wall that I didn't put up here. But then I was able to kind of go back to, okay, what are we gonna do to generate more leads even in a time like this, right? So I don't know if you guys know this, but I created a music video for Snackin'. Something that, is just different. It's something against the grain. It's not what other restaurants are doing. And so we eventually had, I was able to push that out, spend some money on ads behind it, and I received probably I think it was about a 7x return on investment on that. People were driving out from Arizona, from Vegas, from Utah to come and check out the restaurant, because at the time, like, people were just locked up and they just didn't want to, come out, get out of their house, but we gave them a reason to come and check it out. And so just being able to have these kind of brick walls that you're going to be able to break through, driving that business innovation. Another one was that we had a small kitchen space that we didn't really know that we were going to need a bigger kitchen space or need more occupancy. So and so these are kind of the sledgehammers, right? With the unforeseen startup expenses, I already told you guys that we had $300 left in the bank account because we blew through the contingency funds, right? Because we didn't put it onto the seller. We also had, like I said, the limited staff. So we were, looking for people to go and, hire. And so we were fortunate to have a couple of people within our network that were in restaurant, and they were looking, their employees were looking for second jobs. And sure enough, like a month after hiring them, they actually left their business to come to ours, which, it kind of created a little rift with some of those friends for a little bit. But that same person is the one that's been there since day 3. So we're grateful for that. Another one is the family and friends, volunteered to work for free in exchange for meals. There was a point when I would put it on the employee to spend 50%, or to have a discount of 50% for the days that they worked for the food, and then 15% for days that they didn't work for the food. And you wouldn't believe like how great it is when you actually just create a full incentive. When you create a full incentive for that employee. So when we moved over to having a full meal for the day, even the days that you worked, and then 50% off for the days that you don't work for just that single meal, we found that the employees that were even discounting the other employees that were purchasing, they were not, there was a great reduction of people stealing, and it's not really like stealing, right? It's like taking this little bit extra, right? Because they wanted to, feed their sister or mom or something like that, right? So it's like, it's not really these big things, but those things eat into your margin left and right. And so you just want to create like a great, foundation for your employees so that it doesn't even come to like those little micro things, that they want to pick up on. Because it just creates like a very toxic work environment, right? Like, I don't want to come breathing down their neck and like, why are you taking this extra bit, right? And starting to micromanage, right? When you could just give it for free, and then now you have like, hey, like this is a white line that you can't pass anymore, right? Like, I'm giving it to you completely free. So now what are you going to do with it? Are you going to continue to take that extra more, or are you going to, kind of pull back a little bit? And so, yeah, we found that it's just been really effective when you create those great incentive programs for your employees. Working in versus working on the business, right? So many of you guys are working in the business right now, not too many, or maybe it's a hybrid of the two. And so working in the business, you're wearing all of these hats. I've been there. Definitely creates, especially if you're married and you're working with your partner or your wife in the business on these things, it definitely can create a strain, right? When you're working and you're wearing all the hats together and you feel like you kind of have no team, spend that extra bit, right, to start delegating. Like, it's just, this isn't a marriage conference, but it does great things for your marriage. It does great things for your marriage. When you're working on the business, you're gonna be able to start thinking more strategically, right, and planning more strategically. So you're able to spend time at these type of events, these type of cohorts, the Rise cohort, right? You're gonna be able to invest more time into these things so that you can start gaining the knowledge to then should think more strategically and not just think about it, but do something about it, right? Because even, bless you, every action, right, has an inaction cost, right? So the cost of inaction by you not actually doing something about it is an action that you're going to be taking, right? And so spend the money to create more action, right? And that action is going to create more traction for your business. Amen. We got creates more business development, right? Operational efficiency, creates better team building, right? When the boss isn't there, right? Like, I think about like the cat and the mouse, right? And so the cat, like when we're the cat as the boss, as the business owner. And so like the mice are going to be able to go and play, right? Like when you're not constantly breathing down their neck, they're going to be able to have that space, that freedom to be able to talk freely amongst each other, to build that team chemistry with one another. And then even for ourselves, we set up, like lunch or weekly one-on-ones, monthly one-on-ones with, some of our, like without our management staff. So like our entire staff will do like a quarterly or a bi-yearly one with the entire staff, but it's an opportunity to like get away. So we'll like go to the beach or we'll go to do something else, right? So these are just things that are going to create that better team building opportunity that you can think about, right? When you're working in the business, and I'm like, dude, I'm doing all of these hats on the back end, plus I'm in the kitchen working with you right now. Why am I going to incentivize you when I ain't getting nothing? Like I'm scraping for pennies right now, and you guys are able to like even make more money than me sometimes because you're able to get tips or something like that. And so yeah, you don't want to have those type of things, right? When you're able to kind of step away and be hands off, you're going to create that better chemistry. It also enhances customer experience and brand building if you create the system where your employees are able to relate to the customers and you're able to create that great environment or experience, whether you're online or brick and mortar. You want to be able to run that operation where the customer feels heard and seen, and they're going to just be able to be not just a one-time rookie, buyer from you, but they're going to be able to be a regular part of your business, right? They're going to be lifers for you, right? And so that's what you want to be able to do, or you're going to be able to think more strategically about when you spend time working on the business. Helps with scalability. When you're talking with whale investors that are looking to make 6, 7, 8-figure investments into you, they want to know that you're going to have the time to kind of work strategically a part of the team with them, and not you just like having to be still in the business, right? So yeah, something else to consider. What had to be done, right, to be able to kind of bridge this gap is I had to let go and have faith, which means like just spend on the delegating, right? Spend on the delegating, train up that staff, train up your employees, spend time with them, spend intimate time with them, and delegate to them, right? One thing that I noticed, a part of being in the SBA program is there's 4 categories that you can kind of go through, which is urgency, non-urgent, important, not important. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Stephen Covey's, 4 quadrants. But once you start going through these, you're going to be able to see like that the non-urgent tasks that are important is something that you can delegate, right, to somebody. The urgent and important tasks, the urgent and important task is something that you delegate to somebody. The non-urgent and important tasks are something that you can plan for, right? The non-urgent and non-important tasks are things that you just kind of throw away for now, right? So you may think that you have all these tasks on your plate, but when you break out all of these tasks that you actually have, you start to realize like where the priority level really is at, right? Sorry. Something else that had to be done was hiring management. There was, like I said, I didn't get out of the business until just a year ago, 4 years into business. And once I hired the management and spent the money there, you know, it's like, it's a pay cut to us, right? Because that's money that we're spending on ourselves because we were an S Corp business, so we're also paying ourselves on payroll. And then it's also an expense, right? Because you're gonna be paying payroll tax and employees, you know, and paying this employee their wage as well, as well as workers' comp and all those things. And so it's a greater expense up front in the short term, but you have all of the time freedom, right, when you hire that management and they start to take that workload off of you. You're able to leverage systems, KPIs, and personnel, like I said earlier, so you're gonna be able to, these are the things that we did, so that way we had the time to be able to spend networking, you know, spend time with lenders, spend time with investors, spend time with people that are also working on the business, right? Because that just puts you in a bigger pool. You're able to have more time freedom to even meet with people that are also working on the business. When you're working in the business, you're just doing the day-to-day operations. You're not even able to come forward facing with these other people that are doing the things that you want to be doing. And so if I were to start over again, these are a couple things that I would do. I would definitely spend a lot more money on marketing. I would spend less, this is specific for a restaurant, but I would spend less on design elements. You still want to create a warm and welcoming environment in your space, but I would spend way more on training, right? Because that was one of the biggest pain points. I had family and friends in there and we were just doing backyard barbecue style. I would leverage short-term cash flow for optimal brand positionings via socials and creating community awareness. So I think we spent we kind of blew through the contingency fund, so we didn't have the actual proper amount that we wanted to allocate towards a grand opening. But you want to really hype up that initial launch for your business. And like I said, if you're already an existing business, then continue to spend that 5 to 10% gross on marketing right now. If you're doing an initial launch, I would say go upwards of 20% on your initial launch for marketing. And if you don't have anybody, you know, reach out to, you know, a digital marketer or, you know, some other company that's going to want to help you that's specifically niched to your thing. Like I said, you want to be very specific. Like when we go back to SMART goals, be very, very specific. When I go back to the inspector, the inspector that came to view Smackin', right? He was a home inspector. He wasn't even a commercial inspector, right? He wasn't even a restaurant commercial inspector, right? So you need to have these specific niched people that are going to work because they specialize in the craft or in whatever business that you need consultation for. And then I would also hire a business coach or seek out a consultant or seek mentorship, right? So you guys are already doing that, which is just fantastic. Again, there's plenty of free resources. Like I went through SCORE initially, and I would say be very specific on the keywords that you go to seek mentorship for when you are even going through a program, an amazing program like SCORE, because my initial mentor, I think I typed in like something about sales and distribution or something like that. And because that's something I wanted to learn a little bit deeper about at scale. But his businesses were in like tortilla distribution or something, and it wasn't necessarily in brick and mortar, my first mentor, and so I didn't necessarily get that help specific to like my business, right? Like it's not so much distribution that I needed help with, it's more so the day-to-day operations and understanding, you know, where my money was going, how much I should allocate towards these extra amenities, and not so much on like the cost of goods sold, you know, these type of things. And so eventually I got paired with another mentor where she had multiple restaurants, right? And then she had multiple restaurants in Japan, sold those off, and then got into franchising with like Starbucks and all this stuff. So I was able to kind of learn what her experience was like in the restaurant, and then also when she peeled back and started working on the business and started to take that next step into scaling, and found that she didn't even want to necessarily be directly in the restaurant, that she wanted to be in this scalable operation with franchising, right? So I'm able to see kind of this full spectrum. And so finding the right mentorship, right, that's specific to the goals that you have in mind when you start working through the 3-year strategic growth plan or 3-year SMART goals. And yeah, some last thing, advice is, like I said, take the leap of faith, get started. And if you're already in it, take the time, take the leap of faith to train your staff, prepare them, and to, you know, take a step back, start working on the business. Use your gift. One of the biggest things for me is not necessarily that you need to make the biggest profit margin in everything, that you need to be activated and multiplying in your gift that you have. And that gift is something that it comes hard for other people, but it's easy to you. And so when you find that one thing, you're going to be able to create profit from that. So for me, it could be speaking, right? Something that comes hard for other people, speaking in front of strangers, comes really easy for me. And so I'm able to utilize that. Like that's why I have a podcast. That's why I'm a closer for my marketing agency. You know, I'm able to talk with people and form great relationship with people. And it's not just surface level, right? Like I'm able to really dive deep and understand someone's brand at an intimate level really quickly, and make strategic decisions based on that. And so that's why I'm able to get paid in the way that I'm able to get paid. So using your gift and offering that out to society is a big thing. Offering it out to the marketplace. Team leads to your dream, right? So continue to invest into your team. If you don't have a team, get a team. You can outsource team members as well, with things like Fiverr or Upwork, right? Serve others before your own interests. So when you start to think about your goals, don't necessarily only think about what you have in mind, right? Those are great, but if you're able to fill the need for somebody else and fill that gap for somebody else, right? If you're talking to the right person, like I work with a lot of 7-8 figure, you know, type businesses, you can land a $20,000, $50,000, whatever amount retainer with these people because they have the cash flow to do it, right? And if you're able to come in and you're able to find that strategic solution to their business that fills their specific need, then you're going to be getting paid accordingly to that. And so that's why it's important to know your customers intimately so that you can fill that gap. Customer obsession over profit. So building in systems that are going to drive customer centricity and obsession over your brand and business. It's one thing to like have just a business, right? Selling services and products. But it's another step to then build a brand, right? Harley Davidson, right? Costco, Walmart, right? Louis Vuitton, Gucci, right? When you build brands, like you don't even have to worry about where the next customer is coming from. It generates its own, right? It generates its own leads. It generates its own market demand without having to do anything for it. So focusing on building your brand and to focus on how you're gonna, or even Amazon, right? Amazon, I have a person that did a tour at the Amazon facility up in Seattle. And everything from top level to the janitors, right? They're coming in and they're meeting you at the elevator and they're greeting you. They're having great conversations with you, and they're talking to you about, you know, how their workshop went or whatever like that. Like, they have all of these systems in place where everything from the bottom of the totem pole all the way to the top, every single employee knows how to relate to the customer and knows how to drive customer obsession and customer centricity within their business. And so I encourage you guys, like, you know, I'm no Amazon, but, you know, I'm gonna take some steps myself to hopefully position my brands in a way that, you know, what these other people are doing, let's do it well too, right? And so yeah, one last quote for you guys. If you don't understand the numbers, you don't have a business, you have a hobby. And so what the numbers, like I said, they're painting the picture for yourself, for your employees, for your lenders, for your bankers, for, you know, compliance reasons with the IRS, etc. And so spend the time to get your books in order, and take a look over those KPIs. If your business isn't already kind of meeting those goals that, you know, these higher level investors and lenders are looking for, let's try to find strategic ways to get to those goals, right? And let's make better businesses, right? And serve the community, right? Continue to make a positive impact in our community and be a light in our community. Thank you.